Thank you. We'll begin with reviewing our minutes. I had one change on the second page, and that was the first sentence where it says that I concurred with Ms. Fair on the model that we were going to use, and I acknowledged that we were going to use that, but didn't concur, so if we could make that change, that would be great. Is there any other changes that anybody would like to make? Okay. Seeing none, I think we have consensus that they're approved then. Item 3 on the agenda is the review of the ground rules, and we did take these back and look through them, and we agree with number 1, we agree with number 2, and we agree with number 3, but seeing as how we're not collaboratively bargaining anymore, you know, we'd like to thank Ms. Peterson for all the great service she's done giving us awesome minutes over the years, but we've chosen to simply, in the interest of time, record ours, and that'll be our set of minutes, and the board can have their set, and then we don't have to worry about agreeing on a set of minutes and wasting the 75 minutes that we have to bargain. So we're just going to go with our recorded minutes, and we will be glad to, you know, pay Twyla for the meetings that, or the meeting and the minutes she's done so far. Number 5 we're in agreement with. Number 6 we're in agreement with. Number 7 we are in agreement with. Number 8 we're also in agreement with. The only other one that we didn't agree with was the time constraint for setting what I feel is a timeline for failure, saying that in 4 meetings either party can declare impasse. I don't think that we should be setting a time scale to do that. I would like to see us not go to that point, and I would like to see that removed from there.
Mr. Boyle, the reason that I put that in there is, I propose that is we only have one item. I really didn't think it would take longer. I mean, I just arbitrarily said 4 meetings, let's just really work hard and get it done, because the board's interest is getting teachers paid and getting the contract resolved. And so that was my reasoning.
Okay. So would it be a problem to remove that? I mean, we've already set a deadline that we'd like to be done by the 10th of November. I don't see that, you know, we need to have a restraint saying we're going to go 4 meetings and somebody's going to call impasse. I don't like that, saying that. It's, to me, setting a timeline for failure.
Ms. Ross had a question on that November 10th where we said that, but did we just say that in the minutes? And we didn't say it in the ground rules? I don't.
No,
we did not write
we had set a target date.
Yeah.
And then we had made that target date as November 10th in the minutes.
Okay, so in the minutes
So,
then, is that fine with
yep.
you?
Because we had agreed on that at the last.
It's fine with me to have it in the minutes, you were just asking.
Okay.
Well, our target date, that is 4 meetings.
Yeah, if you meet weekly, it is 4 meetings, that you get you to November 10th.
When I read through this, I looked at it and went, this almost looks like a prenuptial to me. And the only reason to do a prenuptial is to think that the marriage is going to fail. And when we stick the word impasse in there, I almost looked like, do we look at it to fail? And we don't want it to fail.
Well, I don't think anyone does. Do you have a suggestion? I felt like if we didn't say 4, we might not do 4. You know, we might just continue to drag it out. I mean, that, you know.
Can we reword it and take out impasse and just say This team,
We'll meet a minimum of 4 times.
yes.
Sure, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that'd be fine, yeah.
Jim, didn't you have some clarification on one that you wanted to, was it number 2 you wanted to ask clarification on?
You have
Okay.
that, not me. I don't know.
I guess, we did agree to number 2 and having our resource people. The only question I had is, if Assistant Superintendent Reap is a resource person, then, he probably shouldn't be adding opinions. They should only be facts that are brought to the table.
Yeah.
So, and, possibly maybe not seated at the table since he's not an active member, if that's a problem, I don't know.
Just so you know, Mr. Reap and I had a conversation about that he would be providing factual information
Okay.
only to the team.
Okay,
And if it was agreeable to you, he would just sit sort of to the side because he may have to come up and talk. If not, I'm fine
Okay.
either way. But we did visit about that,
okay.
so.
Well, we'll see how it goes then. Thank you.
I had a question on number 4. Do we want to just say each team will have their own recorder
Sure,
so that we have something written in,
sure.
or not?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
On number 10, you said this team will meet a minimum of 4 times. Can we have a maximum, please?
Yeah.
Because I'm not,
Yep.
I don't think we need to meet into
Then,
Christmas.
like, what if we're close? But, I mean, as long as we're making progress.
Well, we said a minimum of 4 times. Do you want a maximum too?
I guess setting a minimum, if there's a point where the board feels that they need to go to impasse, then they're wide open to do that. I mean, we don't want to drag things out either, and we want to make progress and get finished too, because we realize we have 2 contracts to bargain this year, and we want to get one done and not be finishing one and starting the next one. We would like a break too. We don't want to drag this out either.
Great.
So 4 meetings takes us to November 10th. 6 meetings would take us to Thanksgiving. So I want to have a max of 6 meetings in there because then you're going to be in December. And we still have a contract yet to negotiate.
I think if we set a maximum, we're setting ourselves up for failure. I really do. I think the minimum is really
So you're saying
good.
that we can't get this contract done in 6
I'm
meetings
thinking
or
we can get
less?
it done in 4. That's why I don't feel that we need a maximum.
Well, do you want to say something like a minimum of 4 times unless, I don't know.
Unless we're at a stalemate.
Well, no, I meant unless we're making progress
Okay.
and we all
Right.
feel that we
Right.
need to
Right.
meet one more time to.
Right,
wrap it
and
up.
I would feel more comfortable with that, a minimum of 4 unless we need to, as long as we're making progress.
Who's a good wordsmith that can word that for Mrs. Peterson will have these, she said she'll have them all typed up for us tonight.
Yep.
You want to just say unless agreed by each party to do more? What would be?
Sure, we could do that.
With an option of additional meetings
Oh.
as the
Just-
team is progressing towards a successful contract.
Okay. I'll write this down, and then, so we say the team shall meet a minimum of 4 times with an option of.
With option of additional meetings,
Yeah.
as long as progression is being made towards a successful contract,
Is that just
or to a contract, to an agreed upon contract.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
Sounds good.
Oh, good, that's good, that's good wording.
Okay,
Thank you. Yeah. Okay,
okay, so we can move on to item number 4.
so if Mrs. Peterson gets these typed up before we
Yep.
go tonight, we'll take care of it?
Yep,
And
we
then
can
you
take
and I
care of
can
that.
look at the words and make sure.
Yep. Do that. Would you give one of those to Mr. Reap and give the rest back to the group?
Yep.
I'll put them in here for these guys too.
Okay. Okay, the proposal by the DEA for the 2014-15 negotiated agreement is a salary schedule with a calculating base of 36,250. And current staff employed whose experience step was frozen in the contract year of 2009-2010 would be moved to their appropriate step on the salary schedule for 1450. This would not be retroactive. This would simply affect from this point forward. It would put the current employed licensed teachers to their appropriate pay cells and commensurate with their years of experience. Section 2 of the negotiated agreement under salary, subsection D, vertical movement, we would just remove the sentence that says there is no vertical movement for the 9-10 contract year. This isn't a money issue, or is a money issue. And so
Doug, do you have a copy of the contract? None of us seem to have a copy of the contract.
I do.
Here you go.
I have one too.
Thank you very much.
I may have, here's another one.
We can- I don't know when-
Because we haven't come up with
Here's one more if you'd like one, Doug.
Oh, thank you. It's in our other binders.
I'm a Boy Scout, I'm prepared.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Since we offered first, can we take that offer and talk about that first, please?
Okay?
So, that offer was made, was the last offer, where you had said that, you would accept that offer and that salary with no PD days. So what's changed?
Well, what's changed is when we talked about that offer, we didn't know, and this was a quote from a resource person, we weren't sure what we were going to get for money the second year. We have a better idea now. Cost of living has changed. Rents have still continued to gone up. We're still trying to attract new teachers to the district. In fact, we weren't even able to hire a science teacher till the middle of September at the high school, and they struggled to find housing. And this group, when we were collaborative bargaining, always strove very hard to, number one, attract good teachers, number two, retain good teachers. And if we're going to attract and retain good teachers, we need to get to a living wage that puts Dickinson at number 2 with our salary, like number 2 in the state for living expense. When we were compared in the paper last week by Superintendent or Assistant Superintendent Reap with building costs from Fargo to us, Fargo teachers are number 1 in the state and we're number 10 in the state. And we're the second highest cost of living in the state of North Dakota. If we're going to get good teachers into here, we need to be number 2 in the state, not number 10.
Based on not being able to hire one teacher?
And how much is our enrollment projected to go up to next year? How many more new staff are we going to need to decrease the number of students in our classrooms to staff our
Has
classes?
Rents really increased. I think they're pretty steady. I don't think it's changed much since May of last year than it is now. Actually, it's pretty much steady even. And we're building 9,600 new units. We just got that projection on Monday. So as we continue to build housing, costs should go down. Economic principle. So we're at the same place we were last year in terms of rents and cost of living. That hasn't necessarily changed. We're the same place we were.
So our administrators being 2 in the state and our teachers being 10, and teachers in Fargo 1 and administrators 4 in Fargo, but they have a lower cost of living than us by a lot more than a few percent. I think there's a problem there. And I think our problem district-wide should be, how are we gonna keep our teachers? How are we gonna be fair? How are we gonna make it so our teachers are getting a living wage?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure that those are good correlations to say, well, if we're number one in cost of living, we should be number one in salary, because that would be across all aspects of the community, not only education. But I do understand what you're saying, because I hear that every day from people who run for me. I mean, it's difficult.
Mhm.
I understand that. But going back, I remember we talked about needing to get to the 40,000 for a beginning teacher. And so our offer gets you to the 40,200. And if we look back and just trace a little bit on the history of this particular offer that the board has made, back in May of 2013, it was 33.5 calculating base and 2 professional development days. And then after the fact-finding commission, it was 33.5 calculating base and 1 professional development day. And now last week, we are at 33.5 and no PD days. So I think that's accurate. Is that history, I think, is accurate.
Mhm. So then my question, I guess, would be, why at this point is 33.5 and no day okay after you've spent all this money on legal fees, but then it wasn't okay?
What money? How much money?
Well,
Mr. Chair,
yep.
may I Mr. Reef, you were asked to calculate the estimated cost of legal fees for the school district over the past few years for the impasse hearing and the court case. Can you clarify for the group how much that was?
Sure. I received a request for those records, and the request was to go back to 11-12, I believe, or maybe it was 10-11. We had about $4,000 on the average until we went to impasse. During the impasse year, which would have been last year, it was about $15,000 in attorney fees that the board spent. We've had a few since then, about $2,000-3,000. I think it was about $17,000 total for the impasse that board spent on attorney fees. Anything beyond impasse, other than contract issuance and petitions and some of those questions, any of the Supreme Court stuff was not paid for by the Dickinson Public School Board. That was paid by our insurance, and so there were no bills for that. And to put 15,000 in perspective, we spend over 100,000 a year on lights at Dickinson High School, just as an example. I don't know what percent it would be of a $38 million base, but
Mr. Chair, may I have one more question?
Mm-hmm.
Just so that it's clear for the entire group, the request for the information was originated from what source?
The president of NDU. And he picked those up Monday.
The copies of the invoices.
Yep.
And everything. Okay.
And I made him a spreadsheet that calculated it for each year and highlighted those that had to do with anything to do with the lawsuit. I think they were in green. Because we have a number of, legal bills, whether it's a expulsion hearing or a gun comes to school or, any wide variety of things.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes.
I want to just interject here. The number that we chose wasn't a number that was chosen by accident. There was some thought that was put into that number. We contacted DPI, and according to DPI numbers, they indicate that an additional $4.3 million of local and state money will be coming in this upcoming school year. And using the statement from DPI that 55% of the local and state money traditionally has been used for salaries, the number on that new money is $2.365 million. Taken along the lines of what Mr. Reap responded to Mr. Wool's request for what the base to $100 salary schedule is. For every $100, it's $54,000 increase on the
That
budget.
includes benefits.
Right.
Right.
So, taking the 4,250 and multiplying it with the $54,000, it equals a $2.295 million increase to the budget, which is 53.37% of the new money that will be coming into our district this year, which is right on par with that 55%. So that was kind of what was chosen. I then chose to go back and look at the proposal that was put forth last meeting, about 33.5. The 33.5, based upon the new money coming in, is only $810,000, or 18.8% of that new money. So there was thought that was put into this in regards with the cost of living and the cost of retaining. We got some very good teachers that are young, and we would love to keep them.
Mr. Fay, could you go back and just give me those figures again?
Sure.
Starting at the part where you started with the DEA's offer, where you said how,
Yes.
the figures that went
The
with that.
4,250, if you multiply that with the base $100 to the 54,000, equals a 2.295 million increase. If you subtract the 2.9 or 295 from the 4.3, it's 53.37% of that new money. The proposal that was offered last time of the 33.5 calculating base is an increase of $810,000 on the budget, which is only 18.8% of that new money coming into the district.
Mr. Fay, excuse me.
I
Mr.
had a question for Jim. The 810,000 represents,
That would be a $1,500 or 15 times, because there's $1,100, 15 times 54,000.
1,500 times what?
It'd be, if for every $100 is 54,000, so there's 15.
Yeah,
So 15 times 54,000.
that's for the salary schedule.
That's
Yes.
for the salary schedule,
Yeah,
correct?
not
That's with the benefits.
extracurriculars.
No, that's just
For increments and.
that's just salary schedule.
Right.
Okay.
That was using the numbers that you sent over the other day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ms. Fair, did you have?
I had a question for Mr. Fay on the numbers, but I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with it, so.
Okay.
What do you think about it? Just let me know.
Back to you on that question.
So I guess I just wanted to demonstrate, that we didn't just say, well, let's pick this number. We thought about it.
Okay, now I remember the question, so I
Yep.
could ask. Where is that money coming from? Where is that, the new additional money, and it's coming in, you say?
Foundation
this-
aid, it's being projected from foundation aid and sales or property tax,
Oh, okay.
and that comes from the DPI.
Yeah, okay.
Just those two items, Jim?
Yep.
That's what I was told. Yes.
Yep,
Jerry
that's what Jerry Coleman.
Coleman?
Yeah.
Ms. Ross, or?
3.5.
3.5.
4.35? Okay.
So this 3.5.
3.5 million.
Okay.
I was telling Jim that the spreadsheet that I sent Brian and my numbers show 3,532,244. One of the things that Mr. Coleman doesn't have in the spreadsheet yet is our taxable valuation for 2014. He won't get that until it's set by the county. But we have a pretty good indication from the county auditor what that number is going to be. So that will adjust it slightly because they impute 75% of any of your county money against your state foundation aid. And when we got paid in October and September, it's just based on last year's payment, and then Mr. Coleman finalizes it in November. And starting in December, we get our actual money, so he's just put in a marker there for what he thinks it'll be. Last year was odd year because valuation went up 52%. This year it's going to be 22, so it'll be a little different. But that's probably why I had
So-
3.5 instead of the 4. But
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
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 Mr. Reef, you said the taxable valuation may increase by 22%. How much of that 22% can the school district access for its levy?
we can only access 12% more than what we levied last year. We are capped at 112% of the valuation increase by century code. So if we levied $1 million last year, we'll get $1,120,000.
Right.
And then that's imputed against us. And finally, this year, it levels that field. They used to subtract all 60 mills, but if your valuation goes up more than that, they can't take more away than what they did before.
Could I ask
Yes.
a question? Mr. Reed, when the budget was figured for the coming year, are these figures in the budget now for this current school year?
revenues?
The revenues, are those in there?
The board set the budget at their August meeting, and they set a balanced budget of $38,589,310. That included any of those projected state monies and local property tax monies and all of the other revenue items. Everything from parent fees for RASP that are in the general fund that offset the grant and all of the line items. It also includes on the expenditure side $38,589,310 for the 143-page budget that has 40 line entries on each page. So there's both sides of the ledgers, what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Reap, so in the, our current budget right now, we have a placeholder for a starting teacher at 40,200.
That would be correct, given the fact that the only information the business office had because of the court case was the board's last offer. That was what was put into the budget.
So we really, truly, you have Jim's numbers, you have your numbers, so we really don't have a number of what it really is. What money we'll really get. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. What?
Said, we have Jim's number and we have Vince's number.
Well, I think we're pretty close
I
on
think
the
it sounds
revenue
close.
side.
Yeah.
Revenue side.
But we haven't
The
talked
revenue
about
side.
the expenditure
But
side.
the DPI side,
Yeah.
and thinking about taxable valuation, we don't know, and they haven't set that yet, and it's not being set yet. And we've certified our levy, and we have a budget already. So what I'm saying, what I'm hearing is that we really don't know what that number is, of what DPI is really giving and how much of it, and, because we have two different numbers.
You're 3.5 or 4.3 is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
so what really is it? Is Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going on what DPI said, what they think it might be.
What DPI projected, yes.
What they think it might be,
But
and without having the taxable valuation piece placed in there. So that number inherently would be incorrect.
Because you don't know the other part of it.
Yep, there's a part of the
Part of the
formula
deal
that's
that you
missing.
know. Which is the taxable valuation part.
so based
Correct?
upon, right, but
Yeah.
so when do those evaluations, when do we get firm numbers on those evaluation numbers?
December.
And we don't want to wait that long.
Right.
We've already established we
Well,
want to get this
We
done.
can't also spend money we don't have. And we can't spend money based on what an assumption is or a principle is based on non-fact. We can't, how do you do that?
No, let's caucus.
Something else has to give. Something else would have to give, because we can't go on that number, because that number is going to be inaccurate. We know that for a fact. It will be inaccurate.
But we also
Do you-
don't know that the 3.5 is 100% accurate either, that may be low.
Well, I didn't say that it was. I said
Right.
inherently they're both right. But what we do know is the current budget. That we do know. We have a placeholder there for our current budget. But if you want to add, something else has to give. So, want to talk about other things? Because we can't spend money based on an assumption. How would we do that?
I guess my question for Mr. Reap, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Yes.
Do we have the for sure numbers for foundation and property taxes for 2013-14?
Say that again?
Do we have the actual numbers for our foundation aid and property tax for 2013 and 14?
Yeah, that ended June 30th, so
Okay.
yes.
All right. Do you have the current 14-15 projected numbers?
Absolutely,
Okay, so you used some projected numbers for creation of the budget, correct?
yeah.
Okay. What number did you use did you use the 3.5?
Yeah, I used, when Brian asked me to get that, currently in the budget for foundation aid, with the per pupil payment of $9,092, and putting in where we think taxable valuation will be, putting in when DPI certifies our fall enrollment, or I take that back, when they certify our average daily membership, because we get paid on a year behind. That was submitted June 15th. It takes them till November to clean that out, so that if two districts are claiming a child for the same number of days, they work through that within the STARS and Power School system. But the number that I have budgeted and the board has approved for foundation aid is $25,323,364. The property tax number that we have budgeted, in the certificate of levy, we levied $8,024,000 and some odd, $8,024,000. Of that, 77.6 million will be revenue that will be used in the general fund. The remaining 356,000 now, with the county audit change, will be used to pay off old bond referendums. But it all gets lumped into the general fund now. Last year, there were 2 line items that were used to pay off those bond debts. Now, with the 12 mills that you can incorporate, it rolls into your general fund. So those are specific for paying off debt. The remaining, though, is budgeted at 7.6 million. And we'll get exactly that because of the 12% cap if
Okay.
everybody pays their taxes. Property taxes are pretty easy to calculate. For tax year 2014 will just start in December. And they're pretty easy because we know we'll hit that cap of 112%. So that number is pretty firm. The DPI number, there might be a couple tweaks in that you have to subtract 2 things from the number Mr. Coleman would give you. One of them is data collection for Power School. There's a weighted unit in the formula. We will subtract $83,000. They take it out of our foundation aid to pay for Power School. When we belonged to an REA, there was another subtraction that they took out. We are no longer members, so there is no subtraction for that. And the final one is Medicare. when we file Medicare claims for certain personnel, Dana's smiling because she's one of them that works to get that done, there's a state match. And it's about 33% of the monies that we get for Medicare payments. And that comes right off the top of your foundation aid. And so I'm guessing, I really respect Mr. Coleman and his numbers, but he hasn't made the local adjustments like that. And so the numbers that I gave Brian the other day, I just compared foundation aid and property tax from 13-14, and those were actual numbers. Those were dollars that we received to what we're projecting for this year, and the difference is $3,532,244. So I'd bet that number's within 100,000 easily, probably 50,000.
Mr. Wu, how accurate have you been on trending the budget for the last 5 years?
Pretty
Within
close,
1.5%?
yeah, or lower. The only things sometimes that we don't budget for, and one of them is rapid growth. We got $809,000 for a rapid growth grant last year because our summer we had a huge influx of kids. We didn't budget for that because we didn't know if we would grow that fast over the summer. It's non-reoccurring money, so it went into the capital projects to help pay for the Prairie Rose expansion. We're estimating if there's enough money left in that pot that the legislature in House Bill 1013 approved, we'll get another $426,000 this year. And once again, the board has committed that to the Prairie Rose project. So we have some of those revenue line items that we don't budget because they're kind of windfalls, but they're non-reoccurring, and I certainly wouldn't recommend to the budget committee that use them for reoccurring costs.
No.
But Jim is right. I mean, the two big ticket items are foundation aid and property tax. There's one other small wrinkle in that this year financial institution tax is not included in that. That was subtracted by legislative action. It was $280,000 for Dickinson last year. That goes to the county this year. We get zero of that. We're working to try to get that restored, but it's gone for this biennium. So there's another subtraction that Mr. Coleman hasn't put in there yet. I took it out of our budget because it's gone. So.
33%.
Well, one thing that the board has to deal with is that we've already approved the budget. So we really can't change it. I mean, certain items, there's no more other than this, new money which is already in our budget for income and then offset by expenses. I guess my question to you would then be, well, what would you like us to not fund, so we would fund your proposal? I mean, it's.
It's their job.
Suggestions?
Well, I do believe the board has some wiggle room, and I'd like to see another offer from the board, because in my experience, there's always extra money there that's hidden away in other places,
We did not
That's-
hide money.
Okay, squirreled away
We
in
have
other
squirreled
places.
away.
We, we can, if you like, I mean, we can tell you some of the big ticket items that we have budgeted for this year. But there's some huge ones that are not normal. It's not an every year occurrence, if you'd like to know those kinds of things. You probably have a copy of the budget already. It's online.
Did you?
I would just went back and, figured, your proposal on Mr. Reap's 3.5, and that is 23% of the 3.5 new money is spent towards salaries.
Yes.
I went back to compare the total salaries in 13-14 that were paid to teachers, and in that spreadsheet, I had to take out some staff members that quasi follow the teacher's salary. Some of our social workers do, our OT/PT person does, our school psychologist does. But of the 262 teachers in there, the number we spent in 13-14 was $13,499,718, and that's an actual number.
Mm-hmm.
The projected with what the board has offered, I show at $14,886,061. So please know that that's not all increase for existing teachers, because the board added 18.42 FTEs in new staff to the teaching staff. So that would be an increase because you're adding staff.
Could you give me the number again?
Yeah.
On that
For
33.5?
Which year?
On the board offer?
$14,886,061.
And is that based upon the 262 FTEs? Or
Yes.
in addition to?
Yeah, if you look on that salary schedule, it's $14,337,000.
Correct, and then you add those
Career increments, and that's the additional $549,052. Career increments, extracurricular, additional days. There's about 400,000 in career increments for 14-15. There were.
I mean, there's a lot of experience.
Yep.
Mhm.
There was 53,000 in new career increments for this year of teachers that hit their second year.
Good.
So, that being said, the number that the business office is using is 1,386,000. And clearly that isn't a final number until we hit June 30th. But that's what's in the budget. We have teachers that have day deducts, and that doesn't count stipends and sub-pay and any of that.
Mhm.
It's the teacher's salary line item for coaching and teaching and advising.
And just using that 1.386 number increase still only equals the 39.6% increase of that new money.
What, would you say it again?
About 40%.
About 40%. And Ms. Fair, I guess I would like to hear some of the big projects that you do have planned. I mean, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I really didn't.
Oh, that's fine. No, I'm glad I wanted to get your numbers down, Ask Mr. Reed if you have that, because we were going over that earlier when he and I were visiting, and I was surprised that we're doing there's several things that are large that we don't, it's a cycle, and they all sort of hit the same year. So, did you go over those big ones that we talked about?
Yeah, I sure can. I looked up what I call big ticket expenditure items that the Budget Committee brought to the board, and they worked on that over the summer. And as Chris said, the budget's online. I mean, it's not all 143 pages,
Right.
but one of them that you'll clearly see right away in the general fund is $1.4 million for the Prairie Rose edition. With the cost of that project was $2.7 million, or will be. And we put the rapid growth money in there, so that's 1.2. We needed an additional 1.4. We'll be a little short. The 100,000 will come out of the capital projects. But that was approved by the board. $1,350,000 was approved by the board for land acquisition. The board decided to put that budget item in prior to the bond election, not knowing what would happen, being hopeful that the bond election would pass. It's unclear yet where the middle school site will be. Dr. Sullivan and I talk about that 3 days a week, more than I'd like to. But we're still working on which site will be the best. Will the board have to spend that money on land acquisition? I don't know. The bond should pay for the middle school site. That was part of that $65 million. But Dr. Sullivan and I are also looking at least 2 elementary sites and a potential high school site for the future. I've not told this group, but I've told others. I was so thankful when Prairie Rose had to be built that somebody prior to my time had 10 acres in northwest Dickinson and bought it for $100,000 in 1982. And so we do have $1,350,000 in the budget for some possible land acquisition. The other 3 probably big ticket items, busing. We have budgeted, in fact, we'll have it spent by next week, an additional $380,000 for busing. 50 of that went to an increase in contract with Harlow's because of the cost of living inflation. And the other 350,000 was for acquisition of new buses or replacement. So there's an item. Health insurance, the increase that the board, the self-funded health committee, put a 9.2% increase on premiums. The board share of that is $360,000. And then the last big ticket item that I found was copy machines. The workhorse copiers in each building, there's 1 in each building and 2 at the high school. We have a 5-year maintenance agreement on those. Those copiers expire on the 14th of January. So we've put out a request for bids from vendors for copy machines. We budgeted $100,000 for that. So if you add those up, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's in the board's budget. It's $3,590,000 that are, I don't know if I'd call them unusual budget items, but they're large ones. And just for clarification, the $50,000, that's the entire contract. That's not each bus driver gets 50 grand more. I didn't quite understand the humor in that, but maybe I missed something. There was a 1.9% cost of living increase in their fees that they charge us per mile for driving buses.
I guess what we'd like to see is a counter offer from the board of some sort.
I think we need to look at the numbers
Okay.
before we make any sort of comment.
We can respect that.
Absolutely.
And maybe you can come back and tell us maybe where you think we're gonna get the money.
I mean, is there, you know, yeah, is there something that you
I guess
think we
it's-
should not be doing, or that we should cut from?
I guess when we asked some of the questions that were kind of sidestepped when we asked for money, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Reap about this, but I asked for the number of teachers that their salaries are reimbursed either partially or in part, and how much that was, and his opinion was that it wasn't worth talking about. So I guess we would like to know the dollar amount that comes for CTE teachers and special services and title, and how many of them FTEs are reimbursed, and how that affects salaries. Because that shouldn't be compared to the total expenditure budget as less than 1%, because that shouldn't go in your total expenditure. That should be reimbursement of salaries like the Carl Perkins is intended for, and
Carl's Perkins is for equipment.
salary.
No. We don't get a nickel of salary in
The
Perkins.
state uses Carl Perkins to reimburse. Because we asked our state supervisor last week when he
Well, we
was out.
certainly can do that. My
Yep.
response to you in the email was that if we want to count those pockets of money, and let's use 6B since that's one of our biggest ones. When our 6B budget on the revenue side goes up $40,000, and we add an additional speech pathologist and 2 strategists to the special education team, we have to count the expenditure side.
Mhm.
And so I can do that for CTE titles 1, 2, and 6, and you're gonna see a negative on the dollars that we receive with the dollars spent. So if we want to use those, we can. They're gonna subtract from the pool that's available.
But it does help offset salaries.
Not if you look at the expenditure side, Brian. There's 2 sides to the budget.
I understand that.
And Title I's a good example. We pushed into the general fund last year, in fact, LLI instructor at one of our schools, because there was no title money at that school, the general fund picks it up. So if we want to look at those programs and keeping LLI instructors and everybody else, I can add those up, but I'll have to use the expenditure side also. And I can show you that if we get CTE money or title and then the expenditure side, I'll show you the general fund side that the district takes out of property taxes and state funding to
Well,
pay for those programs.
I don't debate that one bit, Vince, but if we didn't have any of those reimbursements and the district was picking up all them salaries 100%, that would be a totally
But we're
different
looking
picture.
at increases in reimbursement. We're looking at increases in foundation aid because we've always had CTE money and title money. If title money goes down and our programs don't go down or they
Right.
go up, it's a loss for the district and we have to find the money somewhere else. That's my whole point. I can put it in there, but it'll be a subtraction if you're looking for money to spend to increase teacher salaries. And my response was, let's not go there. But I can sure put it in if you want me to.
We wanted them for clarification.
Yeah. It'll take money from the pool.
Anybody have anything else that we need to add, or?
Well, I just go back to my other question is, where do you suggest we would look for money? What would you suggest is reduced or cut or changed?
I guess that's the board's job, to tell us why we can't afford it. So that's why we asked if you have a counter proposal.
Those are two separate questions, Brian.
Yeah.
I mean,
Those are completely two separate questions. We, the board has to decide, so you basically, what you're just saying there is that if we offer this money, then, if we could offer this money, I should say that, if we could offer this money that we don't have, then it's up to the board to cut Title I, Title II,
Whatever.
music, extras, comes from somewhere. Doesn't matter.
Or the busing or whatever.
It doesn't matter. So, or busing, or we tell the, it, still, money has to come from somewhere where it's not already allocated. So, and you believe we have more money than we do, and yet, if we've already budgeted, where does it come from? Our finances and everything is very transparent. You can see where every dollar, every dime is and where it's going.
I know that, and I completely respect that, and I know that you aren't hiding or anything like that. Please don't get me wrong. But when you budgeted for salaries, did you budget on your offer?
It was, it was.
And so that was presumptuous of before negotiations, that we would budget your offer and we would
be done and settle.
First off, when you budget, you still have to forecast. All forecasting is forecasting. You have to do that.
Well, I know I did that
So-
many years too.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to put a placeholder in there. Wouldn't you rather have us put $1,000 in there? I mean, you have to be realistic when you budget. And it has nothing to do with negotiations. It's a trend, basically same thing with the trend analysis. We knew what was out there in the last offer that you said you would take if we removed the PD day, and that's how we look at our budget. So, yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be reasonable and prudent to have done that? To plug that number in?
Which is the number that you said would settle the contract if we remove the PD day. So that's what we have to go on. Was there something there that we
Well,
misread?
and it's like I said before, things have changed. Cost of living has gone up. I mean, there's a lot of things that have increased. A lot of things have happened in a year and a half.
So back then, when you had told us that you would take, that would be the offer you would accept without the PD day, was there something like, say, that you didn't think the economic activity would continue or the cost of living would not go up? I mean, because we assumed that you were
The
taking
main
all
reason
into-
that, and Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the main reason that statement was made is because we were told at the table, and I'm gonna quote, "We're not sure what we're gonna get for money the second year." Well, that amount of money has gone up. Yes?
That, I believe you said that at the May meeting, Brian? May 22nd, is that what
Yeah,
you're
May,
referring to?
the May 22nd, 2013.
By
yeah.
August, we knew what second-year money was. It didn't change greatly.
But it did go up, correct?
I don't think so. I can't remember if the board presented the revenue side at impasse, but I think they had their numbers out there. I'd have to read the minutes of that. I threw that in the shelf and hoped it would stay there. Foundation aid, we we're pretty clear on. Property tax, we weren't quite clear on the 112% cap, but we were right, so it didn't change too much there. I don't think my office ever said we won't have any extra money.
Well, I think if we have nothing else tonight for the good of the group, then we should adjourn.
We need to figure out next meeting date.
We need a next meeting date, which will be next week, Wednesday.
I would just have a
Yep.
question on that CTE stuff, Perkins CTE, Title I, 2A and 6B. Does the group want me to calculate both revenue and expenditures and compare it from 13-14 to current year?
Yes, and also look up exactly what changed between May 22nd and August.
Okay. Will do.
So the next one is 6:30 a.m. next Wednesday? Okay.
On the 29th at 6:30. That's what I have.
And Ms. Fair will chair?
Oh,
Or the board.
Mrs. Rossi, Mrs.
Okay.
Rossi for that one.
Okay, thank you all for coming.